So wherever you want to start, and then we'll just keep asking you questions.
Well, all right. Well, first of all, I'm excited that you all are happy today, because if y'all would have been all depressed, I would have left. I'm telling you right now, I'd have been out of here. But here's the thing. I want to say, someone said that they're down in Georgia, right?
Yeah,
That's you,
Valerie.
right?
Yep.
Listen, I'm watching that election, and so I'm big on paying attention because we need those seats, those senator seats, right? So that we can actually have a real impact. So, if anybody else have a different political view, I'm sorry, but I'm just voting love, so I just want you to know that's just a sidebar, right? My position is really simple. I sat in prison and watched how our judicial system has been affected by angry people and not people that will legislate in behalf of the people rather than to the people. And so that's a sidebar. Like, I'd love to talk more about that, but I wasn't invited to give a presentation on the political aspect of America's, judicial system. But I will talk about like what has been upon on me. Like, I went to prison 37 years ago. And I want to start here to put it in context. I don't know how many of us that's sitting here in this Zoom, can think, what were you doing 37 years ago? And some of you appear to be maybe not have been born, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just see a few faces that make me think you might not have been here. But to put it in perspective, when I committed an offense, I'm guilty for the crime that I went to prison for. I always say that to people because I want the humanity of Mr. Peterson to not be muddied up, because people sometimes lose sight of that. There's victims on both sides. And when you start to talk about the criminal justice system, we're conditioned to defend ourselves rather than to try to repair ourselves. And so my job since I've been out is to begin to build a bridge between those who have committed offenses and those who have been offended. And it's a really difficult task, because people are angry, people are hurt, hurt people. Y'all have heard that before, right? And so I want to be a part of the process of helping people to heal. You know, I'm fortunate in that I'm not depressed. Like, I haven't been depressed in many years because I figured out I was in control of the way I think. You know, I really believe that. Like, I really believe that as you think, so shall you be. And so I began to, like, I had to learn how to read and write. I may be all over the place, but walk with me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
In 1983, I could not read or write when I was arrested. But I have to make a little statement. I'm testifying against Katie for a second. Y'all professor, I don't know how hard she is on you all. Y'all professor, I used to write her, my dear, struggling just to try to congregate a verb with my limited education. And y'all professor had the nerve to send my letter back with all this red writing all over
It's
it.
nonsense. That never happened. I want to see the evidence. Can you imagine? I don't even do that as a teacher. Why would I do that as a correspondent?
It's true. But anyway, I'm just telling y'all, she's going to deny it. So, but anyway, serious. I'm just being a little silly. Forgive me. But it's so important, like, that you don't lose your sense of humor. Whatever you decide to do in life, whatever you pursue, if you pursue whatever it is, like, make sure you get into a place where you can love what you're doing, you know? And if you don't love what you're doing, find a way to love the process of doing it, you know? So those are like little things that people lose sight of, and they walk through life not because of what somebody's done to them, but what you do to yourself. And that's just some side stuff, right? So going back to my story, in 1983, when I was arrested for a crime that I committed, I could not even appreciate that I was the person responsible for this horrible, horrible crime. Over the years, I began to learn. I learned how to read. I learned how to write. I mean, clearly, I'm now a college graduate, right? I actually have a bachelor in divinity, you know? So I began to understand that those of us that are in prison have to figure out, how do we wake people up to our humanity? Because when you think about prisoners, most people think about a monster that's waiting to rape or rob or loot. And they're not thinking about someone who simply was frightened. I was a frightened kid trying to act like I was a gangster. But I was a kid, broken, drug addict, homeless, you know, sexually abused, emotionally abused. And men are not conditioned or raised to talk about those things. You can't tell, I can't walk up and say, hey, listen, you know, I was just touched. You know, that's not something that men are, even now, you know, men are like, hey, it didn't happen. And then they never really heal and they never be able to love. Because I flush these things, I'm big on flushing, right? So my process of flushing things is talking about them, right? Never let anyone shame you about your truth. Whatever your truth is, let it out so that you can breathe. Y'all remember Waiting to Exhale? Any of y'all remember that movie?
Mm-hmm. I do. I'm old enough to remember.
Well, anyway, it's a movie where the lady just finally had to exhale. I, after 37 years of incarceration, walked out of prison. I wasn't frightened, I was excited. And people kept saying to me the funniest things. Well, you're gonna have to get used to, you know, the world is so much different. And technology is, I'm still learning stuff. I'm like, what is this contraption called a telephone, right? The phone be talking to me when I ain't even said nothing to it. But so I'm careful, the phone might start recording. Google be like, oh, you said such and such, such. Stop talking, Google. But anyway, all this stuff is lovely to me because I'm like, man, life is so wonderful. And everybody trying to like scare me. I'm like, but this is exciting, exploring all these new things. You know, it's exciting learning about Facebook. Like I thought all the people that was Facebook was my real friends. Like I'm sitting there, I'm inboxing people, how are you? Like, and then I got some, because I'm responding to everybody I friend, like, hey, you know, like I'm feeling good, you know, after 37 years of incarceration, right? And these people tell me, man, send me some money. You like, I was like, wait a minute, I don't even know you. Like, so why am I sending you money? Like, and so I'm learning these little tour. It's funny though, because I'm telling y'all the truth. Like, people are like really, really like deceitful. And so now I know that it's a media, right? For like people just to play games, but it's also can be a tool used for some great things. And so I'm going to try to use it to inform people of the great work we hope to continually do, right? But it's still funny to me because I'm learning like, okay, listen, my STD, stop, think, decide. Y'all can use it. It's copyrighted though, so don't put it on no t-shirt. I'll be looking for you with my lawyer. Stop, think, and decide. If you're doing a project, stop, think, and decide, is it going to pass the bar, right? If you're going to do anything, STD, stop, think, and decide. So anyway, I'm learning to appreciate every breath. I don't take anything for granted. I'm still excited. It's almost 8 weeks since I've been out. And I'm like, I'm happy about everything. People tell me, well, you know, it's going to be a time when you're going to be excited in the sensory deprivation. And I'm like, you mean the same sensory that was in prison? Like, the only difference is no one's telling me what to do. And I'm really happy now. I get to tell myself what to do, right? And the technology, that's the only difference. People are still people. There are depressed people that I used to talk to every day. I say, listen, it's going to be okay. How about this? Let's do a couple laps around the yard. What's going on? Hey, man, maybe she found somebody else. Like, those kind of stories happen. But it happens in the world. Like they say, y'all break up with people by email now. Like, we're
probably
no longer
text,
dating.
yeah.
Or, oh yeah, y'all, what y'all use?
It's
Instagram
text now,
and
yeah. Snapchat, right? Yeah.
Snappy, you know, Twitty, you know, where you dancing and stuff. Like, but I'm loving all of this stuff. I'm loving this. I'm loving the fact that y'all have to do hard work and I just get to talk to you, like, and they're paying me like, hey, to tell my story. Really, I love telling my story because it means it's going to be spreaded, that people can change, that there's hope. I'm a biblical follower, so I know hope deferred makes the heart sick. And so for me, I'm able to witness to people that you could think things are not going to go your way, but then look around you. You know, just look around you, be like, hey, it can be so much worse. And I went from death row. Y'all know I was on death row? Hey, I'm gonna tell y'all a secret. Y'all can't share this with nobody else. I was disinvited to a death row party.
That's true.
Can you imagine somebody on death row? Come on, like, I don't want to name names, but y'all know who sit on death row, right? They had the nerve to look at me and say, hey, Don't tell Renaldo we have a party. Because I was so messed up, you know, my brain did not process that I should be kind even while I was waiting to die. You know, that I didn't have the right to bully people. I didn't have the right to manipulate people, to take advantage of people. It was only after I had an incident with an officer that a warden tricked me and started talking to me about my behavior. And he told me, after I assaulted an officer, he said to me, "You don't have the right to do those things. Why did you do it? Like, get yourself together. Just because you're on death row don't mean you could do what you want to do." And I was really, honestly, in my head, I'm like, really, like, you finna like scare me? You know, I'm waiting to be executed, right? Like, what's the threat you got? Like, I'm trying to figure out, like, and so they put me in segregation for a year. But this guy helped to change my life because he said something to me that really has kept me even to this moment. He told me, he said, "I'll make a deal with you." He said, "Do you know the Bible?" I'm like, He said, "If you quote a scripture each time I see you, I'll take a day. When I see you, I'll take a day off of your segregation time." I said, "This dude got to be the sweetest person in the world. Are you serious?" And so the next week when he came, I don't know how many of you all know the Bible, but I know the shortest verse in the Bible. And I was waiting for him. I'm like, I got him. And I hit him with it. Jesus wept. And he pulled his little pad out and okay. And he just wrote it down. I'm like, got him. You know, I was like, this is easy. I'm going to get out of saying quick. But then he said something that was so profound. He says, "But Renaldo, why did he weep?" That wasn't a part of the deal. I ain't supposed to know that. I don't have to. What do you mean? Why did he weep? Like, I don't know, man. Like, you know, your brain started trying to figure out all these things, right? Like, I don't know. He said, "Well, think about it." I'm like, and so it planted something down in me. And I'm saying that to make that point. I began to learn scriptures. And so I ended up developing what I call my biblical Rolodex. And so because I have a biblical Rolodex, anything people say to me, I begin to parse it against my biblical Rolodex, which allows me to stay happy because I have a filter. It's just my filter for life. And so when people approach me, I'll be like, "Hey, that ain't a happy thought. You know, that can't be good. That no good can come from that. No, thank you." And so I started doing that. I turned the segregation yard on death row, where we ended up lining up on the fence. And I used to tell the guys on the yard, "Hey, here come the warden. Tell him this scripture. Hey, here come the warden. Tell him that scripture." And guys went from acting out on death row to quoting scriptures, right? And so the environment began to change. But you have to understand the reason I'm telling you this story. In order to sentence someone to death, you have to say there's nothing redeemable about them, that they'll only be a threat to society and that they're a threat to the prison population. That's why we must exterminate them. Because that's what the death penalty really is. It's an extermination of a human being. And anyone that don't really get that, we can talk later. I'll talk because I did 13 years and I watched every execution that occurred in Illinois, from a guy by the name of Charlie Walker to the last guy they executed was a guy named Andrew Cocorera, you know? And so I listened to every one of the executions because I didn't want to forget the experience so that I could be ready. But little did I know, I was really preparing to live and be a witness to people of hope, even though I thought I was preparing to die. And so there's a lot of other factors that's in that story, but I don't want to bore you with every detail. Plus, y'all won't have to call me back, right? But because it's a long story. But those things led to me wanting to learn how to read, how to write, how to start, doing different things. So as Katie mentioned, like, we ended up writing a blueprint for a wonderful program that's still in existence right now, Katie, called the Building Block Program, that is a peer-driven, offender-controlled program where I figured out some basic things, and don't y'all tell the Department of Correction this. All of the concepts from the program is in the orientation manual. All the things that they're actually taught to do to us, I went and read the orientation manual and just wrote it out and said, oh, this is wonderful. And they said, where did you find this wonderful stuff? I'm like,
that's so perfect.
Right? I'm like,
no one reads that stuff. Yeah.
They do not read their own.
They do not read it. Yeah.
They do not. And so I read it. I know the administrative directory. I read all these different books because I wanted to understand and I wanted to know the powers that the people had that were governing my life. And I began to realize they're not that smart. Like I'm like, wait a minute, like, and they ain't control of my life. And so I wanted to say, well, these people that's not that smart, and I don't mean to be offensive to anyone because I pray for them. But it came to me like, what if I get to start talking to my peers about all of the information that I'm learning? Mm-hmm. And it began to change the environment. And so it went from fights to where we had a whole wing that guys that couldn't read were being tutored instead of them playing cards all night and slamming dominoes. We actually was working on a play, Katie, of Socrates.
Really? Wow.
Right.
That's
like, awesome. Y'all don't know. I have a little, that stuff, wherefore thy cometh, right? It's so funny to me, the stuff when you start reading and
Yvonne, I wish you'd turn on your mic so we can hear you laughing.
I'm dying because I know Shakespeare.
Right, and so what I'm telling you, like, people won't think that, like, I remember reading Plato and Plato talking about, what is it to know of all the gold in the earth, but have not the ability to extract it from the earth. Like all this stuff, I was like, well, wait a minute, that's a concept to follow. What is it to be a good person in your heart, but never carry out that concept? So I started talking to my friends about it. I say, hey, man, I think you're beautiful. I started talking to people in prison like that. Dude, you're beautiful. And they start looking and say, brother, I don't go that way. I'm like, nor do I. I'm not trying to come on to you, but I'm trying to come on to you. I'm trying to wake you up to the fact that there's something beautiful in you, even though you need to take ownership of what you did, because it starts there. The reason I'm able to breathe, the reason I'm able to smile is because I own my stuff and I wipe my back. You know what I'm saying? I used the bathroom and I cleaned it up. And I said, man, the only way I can be better is I have to recognize that there's going to be things in my life that smell bad. But they say that's why you use the toilet. And then they have the wipers, right? Life is the same way. You're going to make mistakes, but flush it. Use the toilet. Don't just leave it in the room. Get some air freshener, right? Surround yourself with different ideas. And all of this stuff is simple, it's simplistic. And that's what helped me. That's what's helping me right now, right? Is I recognize like the world is not bigger than me. The world is not faster than me. The world is just moving at the pace that it's moving, right? And I'm not chasing the world. That's why I'm not having a difficult transition. I'm not trying to chase this world. I'm walking around like the world trying to holler at me. I'm like, I know you're moving too fast. You don't love yourself. Stop and love you. Stop thinking decide. Who are you? How many people really know who they are? I know who I am. For the record, my name for 37 years was Renaldo Hudson. Katie, I have to tell you, my name is actually Renaldo Turner, right? I found out when I got out and got my birth certificate for the first time, right? I looked at my birth certificate. I said, hey, that don't say Hudson. It said Renaldo Turner. I'm like, I've been living a fraud, man. I'm like, how do you break this to everybody? Like all my degrees, all my certificates, all my stuff. I'm like,
on the one hand, you're like, I know who I am on the most fundamental levels, but I don't know my name.
Yeah. And that's so funny because it's so important that, listen, if you don't, I was broken, Katie. Like I come from a broken family that did not tend to me. So when I walked in prison, even though I was 19, I had the mental capacity of a 13-year-old. I had never had a job. I had never had a social security number. I have a social security number for the first time now that I got like a week and a half ago, right? I'm legal.
Congrats.
Thank you very much. Like, I'm waiting on them to stop me now so I can pull it out.
I've got a social security number, people. Back off.
No, I'm saying I went and got a state ID.
Oh,
I
you got your
actually
ID.
have
That's
now.
awesome.
Like, I can pull out and say, excuse me. I'm legal. Like, I'm like, nope, no need to stop me, pat me down, sir. Legal here. I put on my voice. Sir, yeah. No, thank you. You know, so, but my point is all those little things, the scripture teaches me, it says it's the little foxes that spoil the vine, right? Sometimes people take so much for granted. Like all of y'all always had your identity and IDs and stuff, right? Like I just had a fight, like a 60-day fight to be identified. They identified me in prison for 37 years, right? Fingerprinted me the day that I was leaving, like they fingerprinted me. They was mad too. That was funny too. I tell y'all that. Like they was mad. Like, how you mad? I'm going home. Like, are you serious? Like, I'm like, but I was so like, I was like eating it up though, because I was like, well, I don't know what's going on. Like, this is so amazing to me. Like, what do you think is happening? They were like, oh, shut up and just fingerprint. And it was funny to me though, because I was like, yup, I'm leaving. Y'all could get as mad as y'all want. Go on, yeah, you want to do the fingers? But as soon as they set me outside the door, I was not an identifiable citizen. Isn't that insane?
That's amazing, yeah.
The moment I walked out of prison, right,
yeah.
I was a non-identifiable citizen until I was able to win the battle a week and a half ago, thank God, right, that not only am I identifiable, I'm employed. Thank you very much, right? I actually have a job. You know, I work for the Illinois Prison Project to help more people that are sitting in prison get out. Like there are hundreds, if not thousands of people that are in prison that are rehabilitated, but they don't have a voice. And no one is listening. No one is taking on their plight and saying, wait a minute, why are you in prison? And you'll be shocked how many people could really articulate their story in a way that make you say, I'm going to fight for them. Like Katie and them did for me. Listen, Bill Ryan, that dude, he don't get the credit and the acknowledgement that he should. But that little dude, I have to tell y'all this. At one point, I used to call him in the beginning of our relationship. I used to call him, I know you're a white devil.
That's right. That's right.
Right? Because I was conditioned.
You were like, I need help. I'll take it from the white devil.
Yeah, like the devils need to do something, you know, like do. But I was like, because I was confused, you know, I was following the doctrine of the Nation of Islam.
That's right. That's right.
And so what I believed at that time was that there was nothing good in white. But what I learned when I began to become educated is that hatred and bitterness is not a color. It's a philosophy. That's why when people talk about systemic racism, I tell people it's a philosophy that we have to break down, because it has tentacles that play games and manipulate people that make blacks shame whites and whites, you know, I'm like, no, I love Katie. Katie has been the perfect, pure-hearted person ever since we met. I've never heard an evil word come out of her, and we've been friends for years, 20 years or more, right?
Yeah.
So can't nobody convince me solely because of the melon or the lack thereof of melon that you're good or bad. You're good or bad because of the condition of your heart. And so once I learned that, I began to say, well, I need to have a philosophy that helps me to propagate that. I found that in the gospel of Jesus Christ. So that's why I represent Jesus for my personal. I don't try to recruit people. I don't try to convert people. That's not my job. I just tell people what makes me feel happy, why I love the world. I love people how I meet them. I don't be like, well, so you say Buddha said, I don't care. Like, that's between you and Buddha. Like, because you can't tell me that Jesus don't love me. Like, you're telling me, you know, so you're saying you believe he's going to come out of the clouds? Yes, I do. Now, he may never show up, like, but I believed it. And it worked for me. And so you have to find the love that works for you. That's my personal philosophy. Find what makes you a good person. Find, and then, you know, you can parse through those different things. I will have theological debates with those that open the door to me. I'll be like, you don't really want to do that? I do have a theological education, and I can congregate verbs and like saying that congregating verbs, right? And partial Greek and I know a little Hebrew, but that don't mean nothing if you don't have love. If you don't have love, all that stuff is useless, right? If you don't have education, you can talk about all those ideas, but you never move the stone. You never like I told Katie, I want to challenge y'all the different things. I'm gonna challenge y'all for this is over though, right? Because my thing is, I don't just want to have a meeting. I want to have life experiences. To me, this is a life experience. That's why I'm so happy. I promise you all, I really take pride in speaking to people, meeting new people, and having almost every person I've met, I've tried to make a lifetime relationship with them. Because I believe the more of us that love, that stay together, the stronger our testimony of changing the world will be. The easier it is for us to actually help people be better. Because you can call me and say, hey, I was feeling a little depressed, right? But then I thought about something you said. I'd be like, I told you. And Katie have my email. I'll give it to y'all. You can do it. Email me. Hey, you'll never find me depressed. I promise you. You'll be like, won't I'm a catch him. Nope. It's not gonna happen because I figured out the combination to this. If I can sit in prison, and I promise you, they missed me in prison because they was depressed and I used to pull them out of their depression. And I used to preach to the wardens as well as my peers about making the best out of life. Taking a bite of the apple and just, like, that apple is good. Like I'm enjoying, listen, I'm telling y'all, I went canoeing. You know what I'm saying? The other day, I was like, well, actually, I was scared. I was like, oh Lord, I done let these white people trick me out here on this boat. and I was like tense and stuff. But then I figured out, wait a minute, Renaldo, Mr. Philosopher, right? You always philosophizing your way through stuff. Figure this one out. I said, okay, the water is not my enemy. I'm my enemy because I'm stiff, right? I'm telling y'all what I did. So I started like, okay, loosen up. Then I seen this little kid coming by on the, what they call it, kayak. I'm like, this little kid gonna try to pump me. Like, I'm sitting there scared. This little kid just rolling by, just happy. I'm like, I ain't letting that little kid outdo me. And so I started. And my body started to relax and the experience changed. And so I was like, man, this is wonderful. So I was all downtown in Chicago behind the Sears Tower and the Grand Opera building and the Bowie building. I was like, look at all these wonderful places. Like, I did not know these things existed. And then I was also looking around and I'm like, I'm the only brother out here. Maybe they didn't send the memo out. I'm like, they did not send the memo out, right? And so I'm serious. Like, I'm like somebody else need to be telling me this stuff. And then somebody came along and they was speeding in a speedboat. Remember how confident I got? I was telling y'all, I got it. That speedboat came by and this wave came. And it turned the doggone whole canoe up in the air like that. I said, we're going down. And so I said 1,000, like, okay, wait a minute. And then it came back and I said, okay, I had to start all over again. I had to start talking to myself, later, Renaldo, you've come through too much to drown in the Chicago River. They told you that this thing will float if it go down. So breathe now. Start preparing your body to float. So I said, I am floating. I am floating. And what I'm telling y'all, I'm telling you this story to make a simple point. I don't care what you face, what's going on. If you think right, if you use your brain power, you're going to be okay. I just believe that. And I made it. I'm here. You noticed that, right? I ain't getting on another canoe, though. I'm letting they can try that all they want. Like, somebody can offer me $1 million right now. Talking about, want to go on a canoe ride? I'm talking about, man, that is just not my money. I ain't gonna do it. So I'm sorry. I could talk all day. Y'all have any questions? Like, please, let me get to some questions, Katie, because like, y'all laughing too much. This ain't funny. This is my life.
I know. No, this is amazing. This is amazing. Thank you so much, Ronald. I know people have questions. Let me just say, I've never heard your voice go into that register, that lower register, so many times. So
which one? That one? It's so I'm serious. It's like
And you are, this is the, you, and when I do want to say part of Ronaldo's new position at the Illinois Prison Project is going to be doing talks. So you can see that he's on a path here. Thank you. I mean, it's just, I wrote down so many lines, Renaldo. You know, find the love that works for you. I don't want to have a meeting. I want to have a life experience. And I think one of the reasons why we started doing the check-ins for this class, and my former students will tell you I didn't used to do that, is because I wanted to have a life experience this semester, you know, and so thank you. So please, you all, ask Renaldo any questions or just give him some feedback or observations.
Don't be scared. I don't bite.
So I have a question. It may go along with what you're talking about, but I wanted to know what is most helpful in reminding you of your value?
Oh, I promise I think that is a really good question. The thing that reminds me, and it may sound corny, is I look at the people that has decided to love me, you know? And when I think about the fact that, you know what, I'm lovable. And I'm telling you, you're lovable, you know? But when I look at the people that says to me, I love you, Renaldo, I say back to Renaldo, I'm lovable. I know that you love me because I'm lovable. And I'm telling you that I actually talk to myself all the time. Like, Renaldo, people laugh at me, right? But I'd be like, no, you are better than a moment of depression. Because I have to tell you all, I've been in states many years ago where my thoughts were suicidal. You know, depression, I was trying to medicate myself. So they had me on from Haldol to Olympian to Cinequan, and none of that stuff was able to help me. It didn't help me sleep. All it did is made me feel like I was high. But when I began to recognize I was valuable, like I'm telling you, you're so valuable and the world so need you, you know, and that's what people lose sight of. We so need each other, you know? And so when I recognize I'm needed, you know, that may sound conceited, but I just believe that I'm needed at this time. The world need me. And me and Katie used to say that. She said, Renaldo, the world so needs you. And she was saying it in emails, but I used to hear her voice. And Katie, it used to comfort me, just for the record, because I could hear your voice in the emails. And she said, oh, Renaldo, it's just so bad. The world is so, I'll be like, it'll be okay. I'm coming home soon, right? Because
hearing it like that though, because I didn't know that voice was in there.
Yeah, that voice was there.
But,
I heard it.
But that's absolutely true. And I still believe that. And that's one of the reasons I'm so happy that you're out, is because the world does need you. I mean, and as you said, when you got out, you said, you know, I'm not an exception. There's a lot of people inside, and we need to know from them their stories.
Right. And just to segue back to a moment when you talk about the fact that I work, like I'm actually the director of community outreach, and Katie, we're not launching the EPP yet, so I can't talk about it. Like we still just, y'all hear the launch date, right? But I want to really use my voice to make sure those people that will never get this type of platform, that their story is heard, so that the resources, because one of the things we do is it's a non-for-profit organization, right? Which means people are not working there for a profit. They're working there for the principle of making sure justice prevails, you know? And so that's why, like, I tell people, hey, listen, don't come support me. I don't want you to buy me a new Cadillac. You know, I teased Bill about when I got out, one of my friends gave me a Jaguar.
Come on.
I teased Bill. He told me, you don't have no Jaguar. You know, Renaldo, you don't have to lie to have a good story. That's what Bill gonna tell me. I had to go get my friend and say, look, man, don't I have a Jaguar in the garage? I had to go do all that like a little baby, like, Don't I
Yeah,
have a
but
garage?
Ronnie ain't give you that Jaguar yet
It's
either.
in the garage right now, sitting pretty. She's waiting on me.
Okay.
I'm gonna pull up in front of your house and blow the horn and then drive off. You ain't getting no ride. But what I've learned though, the world will take care of you if you just do right. You know, you don't have to. I don't seek riches. I don't. I seek touching lives. I'm a heart chaser. My faith teach me, right? Guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it flows the issues of life. And so I guard the words that I say. It's talking about my mind, right? So if I know I speak life and hope, right? That seed, that's a seed. Words are seeds. It's going to go somewhere and then it's going to produce something. Even if it's just a little smile, right? Because that produces a chemical reaction in you, right? You're like, hey, this is a good class. Like, I kind of like this. Bring Renaldo back next week. No, right? Because you OD on me. Y'all can't handle me like that. It's too much to be like, what happened? Renaldo showed up 2 days in a row. Couldn't take it. I'm just telling you, right? You have to know your worth. The more you know your worth, the easier it is.
I'll tell you, that's an important message. I mean, a lot of people are burnt out in academia and in other professions and, you know, and family situations. I mean, there's just a lot going on right now. And I think that, you know, we've spent some time talking about that, about the importance of doing the work that you're talking about, of working on yourself and really believing, right, that you are of value. We have to have that in order to make the changes that we all want to see, right? So, we're with you on that. Yeah. So y'all, someone else want to jump in with a question for Renaldo?
I have one. It's kind of like maybe a small question, but I'm just curious, what's like one thing that brings you joy daily? Like one activity or one just like process? What's one thing that brings you joy daily?
Hey, y'all might laugh at this, man, but I am like, get so much joy from Starbucks. Like, me and Starbucks has a relationship. I am dating Starbucks, just for the record. They don't know it. She don't know. But I get so much joy. I've been drinking, and I'm going down the list of all these different coffees. I'll be like, give me that one. Listen, I'm gonna tell y'all a quick story, I promise you. I'm on 35th and State. I look across and see a Starbucks. And I have my folder in my hand with all of my identification and everything in it. And I go like, oh, Starbucks. And I break over there like, you know, a Starbucker, right? I'm a Starbucker, right? And so I get in there and I order. I didn't know how to order the coffee. You know how everybody is
It's
all
so hard to
official.
order. Yeah.
They're so official. Now you talk about adjusting to something. That's the one. I'm like, it's a formality with this? You can't just say coffee. Like, it's a formality. So I was watching the lady in front of me, and I was trying not to look creepy, you know, because I was like, okay, I don't want to look like she like, hey, what's your problem, dude? I'm like, I'm sorry, you know, because I'm learning all of like the different communications now, like, because when I left the world, you could say to someone, hey, baby, that's sexual harassment today. I'm like, no, thank you. I don't know. I'm learning this. I'm learning to navigate in an appropriate manner so that I don't be like, Bill, they got your boy, right? And so anyway, Starbucks, right? Just going to Starbucks and no, I take it back. I was out at the Power State last week, right? And they have this big jacuzzi bathtub. And I've never in my life experienced anything like this. And I was in this bathtub that was the size of my cell that I left in prison. It was actually bigger than this cell. And I was in this bathtub and the motors was running and the bubbles. And I was like, I want to take a picture so that I could share this picture, right? And then my brain wants overthinking, like, no, that might not go over well. Like, why is Renaldo in the naked tub, naked, trying to show pictures on Facebook? I say, just experience it And so I was so like overwhelmed. Like I literally got out of the bathtub, and I know people don't do this. This is how I got out the bathtub. and they got this big mirror in there, and that's how I know I was looking like that. I was like, you were so goofy, man. But I was so ecstatic, right? I'm like, that is an experience, right? And then lo and behold, I go into this bedroom and lay on this mattress. And the mattress hugged me and said, hello, Renaldo. I said, hello yourself. I don't know you like that, right? And so this mattress, and so this bathtub and this mattress out of the power state was one of the best experiences I've had so far. I promise you. I'm like, I don't know if y'all beds in the bathtubs making y'all happy, but this show did to me. Like bathtub, jacuzzi, bed, Starbucks. Yeah.
So I want to jump in and ask you something, Renaldo, and then I'll open it up again. We talked about this a little bit in our phone call today, but I'm curious to know any advice you might have for creating educational programming inside prisons. And the reason I'm thinking about this is some people on this call and all of us at APBP are hoping to create an associate degree program at a men's maximum security prison just over the border in Pennsylvania. We have a lot of administrative support, staff support at the prison. Our provost office is all on board. And we're hoping to get started soon with COVID. Everything's sort of, in hiatus right now. But there's a couple things that I'd love to hear your thoughts on. One of them has to do with the kinds of divisions that can get created when there's a program. So whether it's, inside out or something like EJP, where there's sort of the inside group, the people who are in the program, right? And everybody else, which is usually like 98% of the people, right, in the prison.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, and it's sort of related maybe, is a conversation we had with the group IPP a few weeks ago. There was a mom on the call whose child was incarcerated, and she said something that I've been thinking about so much. She said, there's, when people are going up for parole, and not in Illinois, but putting in together like a commutation petition or good time, that the idea that you've done these programmings, right, is looked on supposedly favorably. And what she was saying is, like, there are people inside who are depressed, who don't want to go to a class, they can't get out of bed, but they shouldn't be in prison.
Yeah.
Right. And so I don't know her, and I don't know like the fuller context for that remark, but it did make me, again, sort of want to think about the ways in which it's so vital that people who are doing the educational programming are also alert to sentencing laws and the lack of ways for people to get out, so that we're not contributing, right, to a system that is actually going to keep most people locked down and maybe release a few or help a few have a little bit easier time getting out.
Yeah. Hey, that's a very important subject, and it's actually dear to me because I'm big on education. One of the things that I encourage anyone that's going to do any work in prison is to push toward things like effective communication, right? Effective communication can be something taught across the board, and it doesn't necessarily require a GED or a associate's degree. It's something that every person within the facility can have access to. And so what they do is they've made barriers against people really developing in prison, and we find ourselves competing against each other. That was one of the saddest things for me in the prison, is that, remember, I kind of mentioned it to you, Katie, about like if you're going to try to start a program, you have to first sell it to the population of the prisoners before you sell it to the administration. Because the general nature of the prison system is undermine anything that will wake prisoners up. Anybody that ever studied history know that one of the major things that kept slavery was don't let them learn how to read or write, because they will begin to learn the direction of things. Hey, wait a minute. North is this way, and I heard freedom's that way,
Mhm.
right? Education does that. Education made me stop thinking like a prisoner. I was a free man before I ever walked out of prison. Because once I got an education, I started seeing past the warden. I stopped looking at the warden like, dude, he just became a regular person. And then I even found out I was smarter than him. And I don't mean that boastfully, but one day I was talking to the director. The warden thought he was introducing me to his boss. And when his boss turned around and saw me, he said, hey, Renaldo, his boss used to be an officer on death row that I used to preach to when he was a 5-day officer. And he had become a deputy director. And so this warden that had no idea of my history in the Department of Correction assumed he was introducing me to someone. And so me and the warden the director started talking, and I saw the eyes of the warden gloss over. He's like, what are they talking about? You know? And so we have to get out of the habit of thinking just because people have positions that they're qualified to help us. That's why you have to educate yourself. That's why the building block program was so successful, because it was us educating us, right?
Yeah.
We did the tutoring. They have a mandatory ABE, like for example, in Illinois. ABE is basically if you score below a 6.0, basically a sixth grader, right? Then you have to go to mandatory school for 45 days. So you sit in a seat, listen to this teacher for 45 days. You don't have to really do any work. Then after the 45 days, they kick you out of the population. And it's only set that way to satisfy a state law, right? Because if you score below a 6.0, you are considered mildly retarded, okay, by law. So you can't be held accountable for your conduct. So that's the only reason they have mandatory school. They don't have mandatory GED. They don't have mandatory associates or bachelors or, none of those things are mandatory. And so that's going to be actually, Katie, one of the areas in which I'm going to be campaigning. It should be mandatory GED for everyone that walk into the Illinois Department of Correction. If taxpayers paying $25,000, $30,000 for me to sit in a cell, and I'm walking out and I can't even read and write, and they letting people go every day. They don't even have GEDs. Right. And so for people that want to, I'm sorry, I kind of went on a tantrum, but
no, you're good.
If you're going to do and work in higher education, you have to remember that you have to have a foundation to build that higher education on. And it starts with getting people the basic skills. Reading, writing, math. Right. I'm telling you, effective communication. A lot of people struggle with getting help because they can't effectively communicate with people. They're hurt. Here's what I need. That's why I listen to people. I don't just talk. I'm a listener. And that is so, so important. So for me, like we had in the building block program, for example, we had ABE tutoring. So anyone that was on the wing with us, it was 112 people on the wing. We had 14 people in each class, right? We had trauma and loss, a class we put together. We had finding yourself. We had my STD, remember, stop thinking aside. I used to teach that class. We had effective communication. We had men of integrity, right? All these classes were produced by us. And then we gave everyone in the program a blank piece of paper and say, do you have an idea of something we can do that will make us better? And some brothers scribbled their stuff that you had to help them with. Okay, and so we would sit down with them in our youth think tank. We had a youth think tank. I used to tell the older brothers, our biggest problem isn't that these young brothers are so dangerous. They're dangerous because we're not talking to them. That's the problem. I ain't scared of no young boy with no gun. I'm scared of a young boy with no brain. Because that's what make them shoot people. And so we like sat down with them and they started coming up with classes. So it was the youth in the program. I'll take credit for it because I'm Renaldo, Mr. Building Block. But these kids was coming up with all kind of great ideas. And I just was skilled enough to type them out.
Yeah, that's awesome.
you know? And so I promise you, like, I mean, I tried to give him credit. They like, Renaldo, you're wonderful. I just like, well, thank you. And it's the youth.
Yeah.
Like, I trust the future to the youth. I really do. But
Yeah.
if we don't talk to them
Right.
and understand where they're coming from, like I think what you're saying is a bit weird, and I need help processing it. So talk to me a little more. And so that's the
Yeah.
biggest. I think that's the biggest hurdle
Yeah.
in society right now. We
Yeah.
don't talk to each other.
Right. Thank you, Renaldo. That was great. Y'all, other thoughts and questions?
I've got a question. First, I want to say I'm also a Georgia resident and heading back there here in a few weeks to hopefully do some phone banking for John Ossoff and Reverend Warnock. So, but one of the things we had talked about a few weeks ago was the particularly in places like Eastern Kentucky, they build a lot of prisons, and they kind of sell people on bringing the prisons into their communities by saying it'll bring jobs, we'll bring infrastructure, clean water, all that kind of stuff. And more often than not, those are empty promises. But a lot of people in these kind of poorer rural communities often feel like all a prison represents to them is jobs or infrastructure or something like that, and they don't really have a sense of the morality or ethics of it. And so, like, part of, I think, our work is to kind of change the stories that we have about prisons and that sort of thing. And so where would you start with a person who hears that there's going to be a prison opened in their county, and they're like, cool, like, where do you start with a person like that?
Listen, Illinois did the same thing. Like, a lot of people don't realize, because they celebrate, different political parties, right? I sat in prison. I went to prison in 1983. And so industry began to leave Illinois. And so one of the big sales, when all of the steel and all these big companies started leaving, what they sold these communities was prisons. Say, listen, don't worry, right? We're going to build a prison, and then we're going to bring all these people out here, put them in there, and y'all going to get the jobs. So that's a hard thing to fight when people are hurting. Like, I need to feed my family. And so what I've learned, and I promise you, and I would never disrespect this, there are some very good people that work in prison, that really are. There was an officer that when I told y'all I couldn't read and write, when I was struggling to get my GED, there was a lady officer that used to come to my cell and say, Renaldo, are you studying? I'd be like, dang, lady, you ain't my mama, right? But every day she came to my cell, and so she began to help me. She said, listen, here's what you need to do, Renaldo, and I'm gonna get to your point. She said, write out your multiplication table so you'll learn them. And she would check me. And so I know that there are good people there. But the sale is simply this. Bill, remember this, when they talked about the Supermax prison in Illinois, what they sold the people was, listen, we're going to get these millions of dollars, and we're going to build roads, and then they're going to have industry that's going to come here, and it's going to be a space for franchises. But that's not for the people that's hurting. The people that benefit from that is the people that own the franchises. The people that benefit from that, like the mayor of those townships, right, will get money allocated for him to do different stuff, and he do subcontracts within his little space, right? But the basic person go in there and then become a depressed, angry person, overwhelmingly like, I gotta count these inmates. Like, you was happy on the farm, man, and now look at you, And so I tell people all the time, don't go for the hype, because the death rate among staff, you should talk to them about this, is higher than the death rate among the inmates. And not because the inmates are killing them, but because of the depression.
Yeah.
Because of the depression. And so TAMS was sold to the Illinois, right, the Supermax, and they placed it in the poorest county in the state of Illinois. And they built this prison on a what they call a swamp. And they went and put dirt on it. And most of the places where they do this stuff is the same structure, right? Now TAMS is sinking, right, Bill?
Yes.
And they shut it down.
Close.
And so you can't build your future on the miseries of people. And that's what I would talk to people about. Like, listen, if you think that you can build a future on the misery of people that's being piped out of the city, and you don't really feel it because they don't look like you, right? They look like someone that should be in prison. They said, I don't know, he's black. He had to do it, he's black.
Yeah.
He couldn't be innocent. I even suffered that. It was a brother, remember Anthony Porterville? 48
Sure
hours
do.
from his execution.
Yes.
He used to drink with me back in the day on death row. And they started talking about he was innocent. And I was remembering his prison experiences. So
Yeah,
I knew a different story, not about his crime, but because of his behavior.
Yeah.
But he began to mimic the death of prison. And so we were drinking, trying to drink away the misery of it. And come out, he really was innocent.
He really was, yeah.
You know, and so we have to figure out a way to say to people, listen, there's nothing great that comes out of building a prison. Defund the prison. I say defund them, right? I'm actually an abolitionist, right? And I actually believe that as much as people want to try to make it a pretty place, it's a sewer. Prisons are sewers. I woke up in prison and realized I was in a sewer, and I saw the turds floating by.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute, I've been swimming in this. And I began to smell it. And so I stepped up on the bank and started washing that stuff off of me. And that's what I encourage people, wash that stench off of you, because there's nothing good there. Even the people that work there find themselves seeking therapists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to tell them the real story, man. Tell them to call me, man. I'll tell them. Call me up, man. Give them my number.
We got your number.
I'll roll with you, brother. I'm telling you, because I'm telling you, we have to educate people.
Renaldo, you're so right. He's so right. And this whole thing is based on money. That's what it is. The whole thing is making money for people who don't live there. He's so right on that.
Yeah. And one more thing, think about it. You got Bob Barker, because we used to get all that Bob Barker stuff, right? I'm like, is that Bob Barker like Price is Right? Like, what? I mean,
yeah.
And they like got all this little stuff, and they selling us stuff that's like, I get that. I don't want to go. Listen, they sold me a tablet, right?
Oh,
for $125.
Yeah.
Since I've been out, I ain't even looked at that thing. Like, I'm like,
yeah. So you could take it with you? You got to take it home?
Yeah, it's mine.
It's yours because you paid with it. Yeah. Yeah.
But they made us pay for stuff that's on the TV regular. They say you can download A Few Good Men. And because of the psychology, and this is what they play on us, is because we're in many cases weak-minded, they can sell us anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? They sold me a 13-inch TV for $270. I was in Target the other day, saw a 65-inch color TV.
Right.
I hugged it. I said, I'm taking you home, color TV. And Katie, not you, the other Katie, told me, took me by the hand like I was an 8-year-old and said, no, Renaldo, you must think better with your money. I'm like, that TV loved me. It's a 65-inch, and it was a smart TV. I'm like, it's smart. Right? I said smart. It's a 65-inch color TV for $350. I paid that for a 13-inch TV.
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's how bad they treat you.
Yeah.
Right? Your family, and it's really our families, because you're the ones sending money to people.
Right.
Right? Be like, hey, Bill. Like Bill used to send me money on my birthdays. I'd be like, hey, happy birthday. Well, thank you. And then I would give it to these people that didn't even love me. That's why I stopped liking that stuff. I'm like, I ain't buying that stuff no more.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So we've talked a bit about some of those things about the private companies that are making an awful lot. In
GTL.
GTL, right?
I want to start a protest against them. I challenge y'all to join me.
West Virginia has been involved in that. APBP came out very publicly against GTL tablets last year. I don't know if I've told you this, but in West Virginia, the GTL gave everyone in state prisons free tablets, with quotes. And then the terms of the agreement was that people would be charged 5 cents a minute to read on the tablets. So, and then it was, different fees to watch a video or have a video conference, and it was like 25 cents a minute. But so we did a lot of the calculations then about like how much it would cost to read like Harry Potter, and it'd be like $25. And in this case, you don't get the book. You're not even downloading the book, right? You're literally paying just for the time to read it. So of course, this is going to result in even higher costs for people who are slow readers, or if you want to just reread something, which everyone in this group rereads, right? So it's a particularly egregious contract between GTL and the West Virginia Department of Corrections. And we're waiting to see whether the new terms are going to be any different, but it did get a lot of bad press.
Okay.
I'm glad you said that, because I'm going to tomorrow, I'm going to see, can I get a lawyer to file a class action against GTL in Illinois? I just thought about that, because
someone needs to do it. Yeah,
I'm going to do it. I'm taking that.
We need to have a whole separate conversation about that. I'd love to talk to you more about that. But y'all, okay, I'm going to do a time check. It's 5:17, and I think at 5:30 we should take a break. I will ask my students, we'll take like a 5-minute break, and then my students maybe come back because there's just some announcements.
Yeah, fix it. You gonna fix it?
My dad doesn't know how to like mute himself, so he's going to have this conversation that we're all going to hear about his dinner or something. But before we do that,
hey, Renaldo, Archie, come here. Let me introduce you to Katie.
Does this at every meeting? Oh my goodness. Okay, so but I wanted to give the students an opportunity to tell Renaldo, anyone who would like to tell him what you're working on for your final projects. And then we do have a thank you that we want to extend to Renaldo. But is anyone willing to tell him what you're working on, related or unrelated to the conversation we've had this far? Paige, are you indicating? Yeah, that'd be great. I think you're muted. You're good.
Okay. So through APB,
that's class.
I don't know him.
Wait till this comes back. You're gonna go and get fixed.
I'm sorry, Paige. Hey, Dad.
No.
Hey, Dad. You have to mute yourself if you're going to talk to Archie.
Okay, come in here now. Hey, Katie.
I'm sorry, Paige. Yeah.
Katie, can you hear me?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
I want the students to meet Archie, who's a talented artist that's staying with me now.
Yeah.
And
Hi, Archie, are you there?
Archie, can you see Archie?
Hi, Archie.
Hi, how you doing?
We're doing good. It's so nice to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too.
Hey, listen, I'll share with them the latest Stateville Speaks when it comes out, so they can see your artwork and hear your story.
Yeah, I was going to see if you could do that. And also, if they want to see his art on the website, send them the website. Maybe people would like to look at it.
Absolutely.
Archie's very talented. He spent 34 years in, but
also just got out recently.
Got it right. He just got out, and he's we're eating. He's fixing. We learned how to use microwaves. We're good on the microwaves.
Oh yeah.
But we don't drink Coca-Colas, right, Katie?
I'm trying to get him off soda, y'all. They're like, it's my dad is what, 86. Archie is ageless, but maybe somewhere around 78. And I saw them drinking Coke recently, and it just broke my heart. And I was just like, please.
Then we switched to 7-Up, but that didn't work either, did it?
Didn't make me any happier. No.
What about some water?
Water is great. Water is so good. Yes, I just want you both to be around for a long time.
We will be. We will be. Okay.
Okay, so thank you for introducing Archie, and I absolutely will share the website. And I'm so grateful for all of the amazing work that you're doing as well. Your art is fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
So Paige was trying to ask Renaldo, or tell Renaldo about her project. So back to you, Paige.
Okay.
Okay. There.
So I was reading letters and journals and plays even by Craig Elias, who is incarcerated in SEI Fayette, which is close to where I grew up. It's over the hill from where my boyfriend lives, and it's about 35-40 minutes from here at school. And through reading his work, I really had my whole brain transformed. This class has been extremely transformative for me. I really had no real prior knowledge before through my own ignorance and my own lack of drive to figure anything out. So through reading Craig's work, it just was so meaningful to me through reading the different writing we've read in this class. So for my project, I've been investigating the value of letter writing, both for people in prison and for people outside of prison to correspond with people that are inside, because it was so meaningful for me. And Katie's talked a lot about how it is for Craig, and even he's expressed in his writing the value of his different relationships that he's formed through that. So for me, I'm trying to investigate maybe literacy programs on the inside, encouraging pen pal programs, encouraging people on the outside to correspond, especially with people on the inside, but also just to read their writing, whether it's creative writing, journaling, anything like that. So that's just been sort of my project right now. I'm still kind of parsing out which focus I want to take, if I want to do like the literacy program route or the pen pal route. But that's been my focus. So for me, for you, Renaldo, I'm actually wondering how you even came to know the Ryans. Like, I don't actually think we ever really talked about
never
this.
talked about it.
Yeah. So like for me, I thought that was interesting. Like I read up on your story, and Katie's talked about you so many times. I didn't even know like how you formed connections with people that were meaningful. Obviously, like you've talked about what that was like inside, but I was wondering how that came to be with people like Mr. Ryan and Katie, who were important to you.
It's actually funny. Bill actually came to visit someone that was about to be executed, you know, and I was in the visiting room, and I saw that white devil, and I was like, that white devil gonna come in here, and they preparing that brother to die. But he was caring, he was actually brought the family, right, Bill?
Yeah, Hasselman, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, Hasselman. Orlando Williams was his name.
Yeah, Orlando Williams, right? Yeah.
And so also William Peoples, which is another brother that was on death row, who's right now, he's a brother that, in fact, I just wrote a support letter for William.
Right.
He has a clemency pending, and we're trying to get him out, you know?
Yes.
But our relationship actually developed from there. And we actually had a program that a lot of people don't even remember. Everybody talk about the stuff we're doing now. Yeah. But me and Bill and William had a program back then called Unleash the Power.
Yeah, you did. That's when you were doing your art and you did the papers.
Yeah. And so
that's when the guys that I was running a program in Chicago for people juveniles who just had got out of juvenile prison.
Mute him, Katie. Mute him. Mute him.
I'll give him 1 minute. I'll give him 1 minute.
Okay.
No, I'm through.
Okay. My point though is this simply, right? Is our hearts met, right? And we've been buddies ever since. Yeah. Like, in fact, everybody else that's in my life right now came into my life overwhelmingly through this guy, Bill Ryan. The lawyers that actually helped to liberate me came through this relationship less than a year ago, right? And so we've been fighting, like people don't really know how long and how hard we've been fighting. Yeah. Bill Ryan, I don't care what nobody else say. I remember when people didn't even want to talk about the death penalty. This little guy right there was down at, I'm gonna tell you right now, I can't believe they're trying to kill all y'all. And he used to be in the rain, and he used to be recruiting, and it was like 2-3 people when they started. It's only when the ball started to really roll, all the famous people started coming out, and they pushed my boy to the side, right? And he just humbly like, it's okay, Renaldo, as long as they get y'all out. I'm like, no, I will always remind people that when no one else even wanted to stand up and say, in fact, he was even saying my name. They had signs that said Renaldo X. I was calling him a white devil while he was saying, don't kill him. I'm like, you know, and so love has a way of coming into people's lives, right? And mending and healing, you know, and by proxy, I inherited Katie, you know? And so it's so funny that you begin to see that family has nothing to do with your melon. That's my family, you know? And so it's been through hardship. It's been through a lot of tears, but it's also like one of the joyous moments I had, I'll be honest with y'all, is when I got home, when I got to lay my head in his chest, you know, and he don't know how much joy I actually got from that, because I was remembering all the stuff. I was remembering when he was coming to visit, when my own family didn't come visit me. He was in the visiting room talking about what you want out of this machine that was charging almost rent to get a sandwich.
Yeah.
You know, he like, I'll tell you what, I don't know, we can get one, right? But we were visiting, we was talking about life, and I was telling Bill, man, God gonna set me free, bro.
Yeah. I
He's
remember
be like,
you
I
saying
don't know,
that.
Renaldo, they keep denying you, buddy.
Yeah, no,
Are you about ready to give up now? I'll be like,
you
nope.
always said that. You always said that.
I said, no, Bill. I said, man, you're gonna see me free, brother. I said, they're not gonna have my feet on a doggone cart rolling me out. I'm going to be out, and I'm going to do what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
That's what I used to tell him. I'm going to preach to the world about hope.
Keep hope alive, man. That's it.
And so, yes, we met through a really hard situation, but we've been able to see a whole lot of joyful moments.
Yes. A lot of joy, Renaldo, a lot of joys, and not much of it when you're out. Yeah. You get all the other ones out, then we'll be. And
one more thing, he gave my bed to Aki, the guy he talking about trying to promote for the record. Because I was supposed to go there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm still beefing with him about that. He gave my bed to Aki. Oh, no, hey,
but then you got a damn jacuzzi and all those, that bed.
That's different, though. That's different. I would have loved that little humble bed.
I love you, Renaldo.
I love you more, brother.
So listen, y'all, since this is a literature class, I feel compelled to add one detail to the story, which is that in the early 90s, y'all, I was in between getting my master's and my PhD, and I was working part-time at a bookstore, and I was working with teenagers in the juvenile system in Boston, and for like 3 years or so. And during that time, Sister Helen Prejean's book came out, Dead Man Walking, and I was working at the bookstore, and I got a 20% discount. So I was like, you know what, my dad would probably like this book. So I bought the book, I sent it to my dad. My dad reads the book, and this is my dad, and this was before Sister Helen Prejean was famous, before there was a movie. He called her on the phone. He called her to say, wow, that was a great book. Like, that was really, like, what should I do? And she said, and they talked, and she said, well, Bill, you really should get involved in your state. You should get to know someone on death row. And within a couple weeks, my dad had gone to a meeting of the National Coalition Against the Death Penalty and had learned that there was the upcoming execution of Hernando Williams. And in the meeting, someone mentioned, just kind of offhandedly, that the Williams who lived in Chicago couldn't get to the hearing, which was in Springfield. They didn't have a ride. And so the meeting went on. And so my dad, first time at this meeting, at the end of it was like, hey, what about those parents who can't get to their child's like hearing about him being executed? And they're like, yeah, we can't find anyone to give them a ride. And Dad, if I've got it right, you said I could do that. Like, I could give them a ride. And so that's how he got to know the parents, is actually giving them a ride to the hearing where his petition was denied and the execution date was confirmed. And then I think you went back the night of the execution, is that's correct? And maybe, I don't know if that, I don't think.
Well, it's when I met Renaldo, when I took the Hachiman, who was executed, to the visiting room, but that.
And that's when you met Renaldo, was when you, because
right.
you took them, so after the hearing, then you took the parents to visit him.
So exactly. They had not visited their son in 19 years.
Wow, right.
Yeah.
Wow. So so there was a book, in other words, there was a book, you know, like when we're wondering about the work that we do and whether it matters, you know, Sister Helen Prejean wrote a book, and it appeared, you know, on a shelf before me. I got it into my dad's hands, and my dad, being who he is, like, felt compelled to act on that. Like, it wasn't just an experience of reading the book. It was a call, you know, it was a call to action. And it led us to this moment, 30 some years later. Yeah.
Yeah, it's powerful. Hey, and Katie, if you don't mind, I would like to share, because I always try to share with people that I like to challenge people. And so, just for the record, my challenge is probably going to be bigger than any of y'all can handle. So, but I'm going to just go and put it out there. I challenge you to decide to have an impact on someone's life.
That's
If it's
good.
a prisoner or someone that's not a prisoner. But I challenge you to look at a situation that you can actually get engaged to make someone's life a little better. You know, because at the end of the day, like, these are the things that really matter. The things that, and me and Bill, y'all don't know, like, we fight and all that stuff, like what that family do and friends do, right?
Yeah.
But that love, you know, that came from this one conversation. And we're almost 30 years down the road. The best of buds.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I just encourage you. I talked to Katie about this. We did a book, Lockdown Prison Heart.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I want to do part 2. So I challenge y'all. Help me.
Mm-hmm. Well, this, and you got, this would be a powerful group to
Right?
enlist
So if
in
y'all
that.
saying y'all for real, like y'all some literary professors and stuff, I don't know. Right?
They're red pens.
Right? I don't care what I'm telling y'all, Katie had that.
He's funny.
I don't know. And it was, she kept telling me, I didn't do that. You did do
Do
that.
that. There's no way I did that. Okay, you all. So listen, I want to pass it to Morgan, who has a thank you for you, Renaldo, and then we can sign off and take a break, and my students can come back after the break. Morgan.
Yes. So I heard that you wanted a colorful hat as a thank you. And I'm a knitter. So I have knitted you a colorful hat to keep your noggin warm in the cold Chicago winter. But I'm going to give it to Katie probably this week sometime, and hopefully she'll send it right over to you so you can wear it.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Of course.
I love that. I'm telling you, listen, I'm the biggest hat person like in the world. Like, in the hat with color. I see it. It looked green. Put that back up here. That's one of the colors I'm hunting right now. See, I need that hat like yesterday, Katie. You need to put that in the mail.
Oh, I will. I'll get it to you. It's beautiful. That thank you so much, Morgan, for doing that. It was such a extraordinary moment when we realized that, because I was like, y'all, he wants a hat, he wants shoes, it's got to be colorful. Can any of you shop? That's what I asked you. Remember, I was like, I can't pick out stuff, so who can shop? And Morgan was like, well, I could make him something, and I was like, well, that would be perfect. Yeah,
that's
perfect. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a picture as soon as I get that hat, and I'm gonna put it on Facebook. Says, you know, Morgan.
Yes.
Knitted this. I'm telling you, get ready for this look. Yeah, Morgan knitted this. I'm telling you. I'm gonna do the Instagram with that. In fact, because they're opening up, Katie, you know, they're opening up my Twitter account and my Instagram.
That's right. We're gonna get you across the platforms.
You got it, all of them.
It's going down, brother. I'm gonna be like,
Morgan knitted this hat. We'll have to tag her. All right,
yeah,
you all. This was incredibly, incredibly beautiful. Renaldo, thank you for sharing so much of your story with us. Thank you to my beautiful students, past and present, and to our guests. You know, this means the world to me. Been doing this for 20 years, teaching classes on prison studies, and you know, this is it, man. This is the pinnacle. This is what we wanted, right? So thank you. I'm going to sign off before I cry. And students, if you all could just come back as we usually do. So you all take about a 5-minute break, and then we'll reconvene. All right.
Bye,
Thank
Katie.
You, Renaldo. Bye,
Love
Dad.
you,
Thank
Katie.
you so much.
I love y'all.
Bye-bye, Kate.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.